Hello, this is your evening news from Vox Africa studios in London. I am Pamela Bonkyung. Now let's have a look at today's major headline stories. Ivory Coast started the post-electoral violence trials yesterday. Some top officials loyal to Laurent Gbagbo admit culpability. Meanwhile, Turkish parliament debate on the possibility of the nation taking military action against Syria. And in the first U.S. presidential debate, Romney comes in fiercely and Obama just holds his own. But what did the American public make of it? We find out in a moment. Ivory Coast yesterday started the court hearings of 2 of the 5 military officers accused of kidnapping and murder and admitted killing General Adama Dosso. Dosso was a colonel major close to President Alassane Ouattara. The colonel was arrested when he was leaving the Gulf Hotel, then the quarters of General Alassane Ouattara. Sergeant Noel Lago Leo admitted to this killing. Lago then asked to be pardoned by the deceased family. However, Anselm Sekayapo and General Bruno Dogbe Blay, 2 henchmen of the former regime, have not been heard yet. They stand accused of genocide and other crimes committed during the post-electoral crisis. But Ouattara's regime has been criticized and suspected of practicing a victor's judicial system. The case continues. Meanwhile, some 100 people in Kismayo have been arrested by the Somali government on suspicion of links to the militant Al-Shabaab group. The arrest took place yesterday after the Allied forces took over the seaport city. There was a search operation launched to arrest pockets of leftover Al-Shabaab militants. The suspects have now been remanded in custody. In the meantime, Al-Shabaab's military operations spokesperson Sheikh Abdiaziz Abu Musab reportedly says their withdrawal from Kismayo last Friday was due to tactical retreat, but promised they would be back to surprise Somali forces and the African Union forces. Now we go down to South Africa, where Toyota workers at the Toyota Motor Corporation manufacturing plant in Durban have worked out overpay. The strike, which has been dubbed illegal, stopped production today. This comes amidst continuous strikes from 75,000 miners. The Japanese motor manufacturers were already struggling to keep lines running following a truck driver strike. This is putting more pressure on Zuma's government and is hitting Africa's largest economy hard. The Durban plant produced 120,000 cars each year, with half of these headed for overseas markets. Now is off to South Sudan, where Mongolian engineers from the United Nations mission in South Sudan have been busy repairing ambulances that ran out of service at Bentui Hospital. According to the engineers, there is an urgent need for medical transport for the South Sudanese state. The ambulances had been standing without use for over 2 years now after they broke down. Out of the 4 ambulances which broke down, 2 have been repaired and are on the roads. The third is still undergoing repairs. As the health situation deteriorates in Bentui and surrounding areas, it is hoped that the vehicles will help take people to hospitals, especially those affected by recent floods. We hear from Dr. Simon John Deng, State Medical Director at Bentui Hospital, and Captain Ganchemek Tenseng, Civil Military and Corporation Officer.
Now we have 2 ambulances. They are functioning, and they will help us. They will help our supporters, our community. This is like this humanitarian support. So we appreciate what they did with by the Mongolians unanimous team.
We wanted to help them within our capability, because in our military battalion we have the professional mechanical engineering group, so we thought that we will be able to fix the ambulance, because the ambulances, they have been sitting here not functioning. So we want this ambulance, run around and help the people to serve here.
Right, we move once again over to West Africa, where the Ghanaian authorities have seized an Argentine naval ship following a request by investors at the request of NML Capital, a subsidiary of U.S. hedge fund Elliott Management Group. A Ghanaian court detained the ship. When Argentina defaulted on its loans in 2001, the investors lost out. Argentina's foreign minister released a statement saying they would contact Ghana to find out how the financiers were able to pull this stunt. Considered one of the biggest defaults in history, Argentina defaulted on $100 billion in 2001 and 2002. Some of the creditors who lost out are still pursuing Argentina's government in court to recover their money. More in West Africa there, we go over to Nigeria, where the floods have receded in central Nigeria, leaving behind wildlife such as crocodiles, hippopotamuses and snakes at its wake. The floods, which have been one of the worst experienced by the country, displaced thousands and left hundreds dead. The country's National Emergency Management Agency is working with the Benue state government and relevant agencies to ensure the safe return of victims to their homes. Meanwhile, over 100 people have been arrested in Mubi, Yola, for the killing of 25 students late Tuesday evening. The killings, whose scene looked like that of the slaughter of rams, shocked the state. The students studied at the Federal Polytechnic and the School of Health Technology in Mubi, Adamawa Province in Nigeria. The Adamawa State Police Command have refused to release the details of those arrested. The state police believe doing so would compromise investigations. The corpses of the victims were taken to the specialist hospital in Yola for an autopsy. The governor of the state, Murtala Nyako, has condemned the attacks and the investigations continue. More into Central Europe and Middle East, there were Turkish police fired tear gas into a crowd of protesters near the parliamentary building. This protest was an anti-war one, as the country's parliamentarians gathered to decide on whether military action should be taken on Syria or not. This comes as yesterday Syria fired a mortar into the Turkish village of Akakale, killing 5 civilians. Turkey responded by sending its artillery, which hit Syria's border town of Tel Abyad. There has been international outrage at Syria's firing a mortar into Turkey. The United Nations has implored Turkey to keep communicating with Syria. NATO, on the other hand, has asked that Syria stops its aggression on Turkey. British Foreign Secretary of State has begged for caution, or the situation could escalate. Let's hear more from him.
I condemn the Syrian action that resulted yesterday in the death of Turkish citizens. I spoke to the Turkish Foreign Minister last night to convey the sympathies of the United Kingdom for the victims of this outrageous incident. The most important thing of all is that the Syrian government makes sure that there is no repetition whatever of any incident of this kind, so that such tensions on border regions with Turkey or with other neighbouring countries can be avoided. And I look to the Syrian government to ensure that that happens. This whole incident is a reminder that the longer the conflict goes on in Syria, the greater the danger to international peace and security, and that we need a transitional government and a peaceful solution to the conflict in Syria. This underlines the urgency of this. As to the Turkish response, of course, we all want to make sure that there is no escalation of this incident, but I think the response of Turkey is understandable in these circumstances. I want to express our solidarity with Turkey, a valued NATO partner, but we don't want to see an escalation from either side of the border of the incident that has taken place.
A motorcyclist has been burned to death after crashing into a lorry while trying to avoid Robert Mugabe's convoy. This happened when the cyclist tried to clear the way from Mugabe's 15-vehicle motorcade. The cyclist veered into an oncoming lorry and his bike caught fire. This is not the first time such an incident is happening in Zimbabwe. In June this year, a media outlet in the country reported that motorcyclists from Mugabe's motorcade had caused an accident, killing 2 people and injuring 15 others in 2 separate incidents. Mugabe's motorcyclists drive at very high speed as they expect the right of passage. More into the Middle East, where a car bomb in Baghdad has killed 4 civilians and injured 15 others, according to the country's police sources. This happened in Baghdad's upmarket western neighborhood of Mansour. The bomb was detonated near a passing private security convoy. One of the convoy's vehicles was badly damaged, including civilians' cars. Windows of nearby shops were shattered. Government figures released on Monday this week have placed the death toll from militant attacks across Iraq to 365. The attacks more than doubled in the month of September. Now into Western Europe, where a 24-hour railway strike in Belgium left unsuspecting tourists stranded. The strikes, which affected the Eurostar to Thalys, brought transport to a halt. For tourists, it was a nightmare as they struggled to try to connect to their flight or move from one city to another. Let's hear from one tourist who was affected by the rail strikes. We move forward into Western Europe, where a 24-hour railway strike in Belgium left unsuspecting tourists stranded. The strikes, which affected the Eurostar to Thalys, brought transport to a halt. For tourists, it was a nightmare as they struggled to connect to flights or move from one city to another. Here is one tourist who was actually affected by these rail strikes.
Need to get our plane, and we don't know what time we're going to get there and what's happening yet, and just a bit of information is what we want, really.
Right, Spain, confidence in Spain saw the sale of its bond yield below expectation. Plans by the country to seek help from Europe to alleviate its debt costs resulted in it selling 3 bonds at almost 4 billion euros today. 2 bonds saw their yields decline as Spain prepares to seek European aid. Spain's treasury sold 1.3 billion euros of bonds maturing in October 2014 and 2 billion euros of bonds maturing in October 2015, and finally 710 million worth euros of a 5-year bond. Not too bad though, as the sale was between the 3 billion to 4 billion euro target set by the Treasury. The British Prime Minister David Cameron has added his voice to those of April Jones's parent to urge for the youngster to be found. He described the case as every family's nightmare. This comes as leads for the little girl's search have gone cold. The police have called for anyone with information on the movements of the main suspect, Mark Bridger, on the day that April disappeared to contact them. The main suspect, Mark Bridger, has been in custody and this morning appeared before the courts for his first hearing. 5-year-old April was taken from the mid-Welsh town of Machynlleth on Monday. Here is Reg Bevan, Detective Superintendent, working on the case, and April Jones's godmother, Mayor Raftery.
Please don't assume that someone else has already contacted us. Please, even if you have the smallest of information, it could be crucial to this investigation.
Keep strong for Coral and Paul and the rest of the family, really, but it's very difficult. It's so sad. Sorry. Just please, if anybody knows anything, please get into contact.
Right, we go down south to Latin America, where today is the last day for campaigns in the Venezuela elections. The country's president, Hugo Chavez, will go head-to-head with the opposition's candidate, Enrique Capriles. There is just 3 days left to go before Venezuelans go out to cast a vote for their favorites. The president of Venezuela's National Electoral Council informed reporters this morning that the country had the safest and most secure voting system. However, a poll conducted by Andres Bello Catholic University shows that a quarter of 18.9 million registered voters do not believe the secrecy of their votes is guaranteed. More on presidential debates. We head to the United States of America, where the first United States presidential debate took place last night and left a lot of mixed feelings in terms of performance and the issues that were addressed. Experts think President Obama gives a lot of details and makes his responses too laden for people to digest. Perhaps they think his lecture background has not served him well in that area. Meanwhile, Romney was seen to be distancing himself from ordinary voters with the language he used and the choice of words that that he had. These voters he alienates are supposedly those earmarked to help him win the elections. So apparently both candidates have some work to do before final countdown. Let's hear from the candidates on salient issues of tax and government expenditure.
Now, I'm concerned that the path that we're on has just been unsuccessful. The president has a view very similar to the view he had when he ran 4 years ago, that a bigger government, spending more, taxing more, regulating more, if you will, trickle-down government would work. That's not the right answer for America. I'll restore the vitality that gets America working again. Thank you.
Well, for 18 months, he's been running on this tax plan. And now, 5 weeks before the election, he's saying that his big, bold idea is never mind. And the fact is that if you are lowering the rates the way you described, Governor, then it is not possible to come up with enough deductions and loopholes that only affect high-income individuals to avoid either raising the deficit or burdening the middle class. It's math. It's arithmetic.
Wow, such words as the debate between President Barack Obama and hopeful Mitt Romney was reviewed worldwide. Many people are expressing various opinions on what both candidates did or did not do. In addition, the moderator was criticized for letting the debate run over and for letting candidates, especially Mitt Romney, run away with the debate. Earlier, we got reactions from Washington, D.C. residents, but now let's move over to New York City and see what New Yorkers think, especially students, and David Birdsell, public affairs professor at Baruch College.
Both candidates, I think, did a reasonably good job. Certainly neither committed a deadly gaffe. Neither of them did something that's really going to change the trajectory of the race on the downside. But I'm not sure that Mitt Romney got the debate that he needed. Mitt Romney, down in the polls, needed to make this a pivot point in how we perceive the campaign. He needed to press Barack Obama. He needed to have Barack Obama back on his heels defending his record.
Obama he was more comfortable with his ideas. Romney was working a bit too hard trying to convince people because he's down on the polls by 4 points. So he's trying to persuade those voters from swing states.
He appeared to be very calm. He took every situation and said his answers clearly.
Oh, I think he's very handsome and he spoke very well. And I'd say the same about President Obama. I think they both handled themselves very well. They each had little digs. I just think there are very clear differences in how they stand on the issues.
I was extremely impressed with Governor Romney's performance, specifically because although it may be criticized by many people, I liked his aggressive approach and the way he attacked a lot of the ideas and a lot of the topics that were to be discussed.
President Obama, he did great. He always does. He's a great speaker. I think he could have done better tonight, honestly. I'm a fan of him. I like a lot of his policies. He seemed a bit nervous for some reason and almost that some questions threw him off, and Mitt Romney seemed to throw him off a bit as well.
Well, we wish both candidates their good luck with those speeches, and we move over to Formula One. Michael Schumacher, the Top Gun Formula One driver for Mercedes, has yet announced again that he is retiring. Mercedes' team principal Ross Brawn has described him as the greatest racing driver of the century. Schumacher had announced 7 times before that he was retiring for the 2nd time. His first retirement was at the end of 2006 after winning 5 titles in a row for Ferrari and 2 with Benetton in 1994 and 1995. Though he has had a high-flying career, Schumacher has been in some very embarrassing crashes. The German racer has expressed no regrets and says he will walk away for good this time after the current season finishes in Brazil this November. Okay, let's hear from Michael Schumacher himself and Ross Brawn, the Mercedes team principal.
It's good to say goodbye, and that's what I'm doing here with by the end of the season. And it might this time even be forever. During the past month, I was not sure if I still had the motivation and energy which is necessary to go on. It is not my style to do something that I'm not 100% feeling for. With today's decision, I feel released, obviously, from those doubts, and in the end, my ambition to fight for victories and the pleasure of driving is nourished obviously by competitiveness. It is without doubt that we did not achieve our goals to develop a World Championship fighting car. But it is also very clear that I can still be very happy about my overall achievements in the whole time of my career. In the past 6 years, I have learned a lot about myself. For example, that you can sort of open yourself without losing focus, that losing can be both more difficult and more instructive than winning. Sometimes I've lost this sort of out of sight in the earlier years. Though, that you appreciate to be able to do what you love to do, that you should live your convictions, and I was able to do so.
I think Michael brought a lot to the team in this second period that people don't see. Huge contribution behind the scenes. We haven't achieved what we wanted to achieve together, and that's frustrating, but I think what we do achieve in the future will be still, Michael will have made a contribution to it. So, yes, as I say, for me personally, the greatest racing driver of this century.
Well, good luck to Schumacher there, and we hope he comes back to thrillers with more races. Now, let's have a look once again at today's major headlines. Ivory Coast started the post-electoral violence trials yesterday. Some top officials loyal to Laurent Gbagbo admit culpability. Turkish parliamentary debate on the possibility of the nation taking military action against Syria. And in the first US presidential debate, Romney comes in fiercely and Obama just about holds his own. What did the American public make of it? Well, thank you for watching, and for more updates do visit www.voxafrica.co.uk/news. Have a lovely evening. Goodbye.